It's time now for French Connections, our weekly look at the intricacies of life here in France. And this week, we're going to focus on the French population and how it's studied. Recently, one of the country's most popular newspapers grabbed a lot of attention when it declared that it's taking a break from carrying out political polls during the presidential campaign. Well, Florence Villeminot is here to talk about these intricacies now. I mean, that grabbed a lot of headlines, didn't
That's
it?
right. Le Parisien got a lot of press in and outside of France for its decision. It explained why in this article that I'm going to show you. Essentially, Le Parisien says if you look at recent history, pollsters and the media got a lot of things wrong, whether it's Brexit, Trump's election in the US, or even François Fillon's victory in the Conservative primary. Now, Le Parisien says it wants to take a step back, focus on grassroots journalism, and perhaps save a little bit of money in the meantime.
Yeah, and create a buzz as well. And that's the political polling side of things. But in general, gathering information and statistics about the population and society here in France can be a bit of a touchy subject, can't it?
That's right. What's funny is if you ask basic French people, they probably don't know that much about the makeup of French society, starting with how many French people there actually are.
We're 60, gosh, I can't remember. 67 million.
63 million.
So even the number of French people can be tricky. According to the latest statistics in January 2016, France's population came up to 66,627,602 people. But the key question is, what kind of people? Now, if you've spent any time in France, you'll have seen that it's undeniably a multicultural, multi-ethnic, and multiracial society. But getting to know more about the exact makeup of French society is tricky because in France, it's forbidden by law to collect statistics that refer to race, ethnicity, and religion.
And this might seem crazy to people in the US or the UK or Canada, where that kind of statistical information is routine and readily available. And to understand the thinking behind this in France, you have to look right back to the French Constitution, don't you?
Absolutely. Article 1 of the French Constitution. Let's take a look. It says France is an indivisible, secular, democratic, and social republic that ensures the equality of all citizens before the law, without a distinction of origin, race, or religion. Essentially, France likes to think about itself as a colorblind society. It treats all individuals as equal citizens, refusing to group them into categories. Essentially, you're a citizen of the secular republic before anything else. And remember, here in France, people are quite terrified of something called communautarisme, and that's essentially a society where people cling to separate community identities, so cultural or ethnic or religion, before the national identity.
So they're not gathering information in the name of non-discrimination. But the truth is, in reality, France does have significant problems of discrimination, doesn't it, anyway, and racial and economic discrimination.
Absolutely. France's ideology of a colorblind republic is, it's noble in theory, but often mocked by reality. In fact, there are several small private studies that have been carried out that show that Black people and people of North African origin are more likely to get stopped by the police. They have a harder time getting jobs. And so many people argue that if France wants to recognize and correct discrimination, well, first it has to have official data on minorities. Now, time and time again, there have been pushes by the INSEE and the INED, so these are two national statistics bureaus, to collect racial statistics. And in fact, they actually have quite a lot of support for these pushes.
We've had enough with good intentions and declarations of principles. Today we need action and results.
We need statistics to know what's happening in businesses, education, housing. That's why it's important.
Now, some of the resistance to collecting this kind of data is present in France, largely because of history, events of the past, isn't it?
That's right. Critics detect a nasty echo of colonialism, but especially the Vichy era of identity documents that were used to list and ultimately deport Jews. And so a lot of people are just afraid that history could repeat itself.
They're trying to create ethno-racial categories in public statistics. The last time we did that, they were used to identify individuals in order to divide them.
And Flo, there is a lot of resistance here in France, isn't there, to US-style affirmative action or multiculturalism?
That's right. Critics say that positive discrimination is still discrimination, and classifying people by race and ethnicity is, in a way, racism. And there's one thing that you need to know is that here in France, the word race is especially charged. In fact, it's our word du jour. Literally, it translates as race, but in France, it has a racist connotation. It's considered a bad word. And in fact, in 2013, French lawmakers banned the word race from all legislation. They argued that the word had no scientific validity and had been the basis of racist ideologies.
So if there are no official statistics, what do we know about the makeup of French society in reality?
Well, the prohibition of using racial and ethnic data, even if it's volunteered, means that French people have to guess or guesstimate a lot about just what the French population is made up of, often using indicators like people's names, but that's not 100% reliable. So, we just don't know for sure. We often say, for instance, that France is the home of Europe's largest Muslim population, but if you try to find exact statistics about just how many Muslim people there are in France, it's really difficult. And what's interesting is in the wake of the recent terrorist attacks, there's been a major debate on national identity, on what it means to be French. And so once again, there have been calls to carry out an accurate snapshot of French society.
All right, fascinating stuff. Thank you very much indeed, Florence Villeminot. That was French Connections. If you have any other questions you'd like us to answer, be sure to tweet Flo at Flo Villeminot, and be sure to check out previous shows on our website. That's www.france24.com, and our Facebook page too.